and welcome to Read It with Whiskey, the place to be if you are a sci-fi or fantasy reader. My name is Laura and I am your host. I am a reader, writer, and whiskey drinker, here to share with you the person behind the page, the author. And today's featured author is Chloe Hodge, the author of The Cursed and the Broken. Such a fun fantasy series, you guys, but first let me tell you a little bit about Chloe. Chloe has always had a fondness for the fantastical. Before her love of books led her to publish the Guardians of the Grove trilogy, she completed a Bachelor of Journalism and Professional Writing and worked as a journalist. She loves crafting new worlds, running an editing business, Chloe's Chapters, and drinking copious amounts of tea while also playing video games. I absolutely loved this book. I devoured it. I feel like I say that about a lot of books that we have on the show, but I really enjoyed it. So let me tell you what The Cursed and the Broken is all about. Years ago, the Dark Queen was executed by witches, her cultists hunted down like rats and forced into hiding. Their black magic buried and put to rest, all was well in the world, or so we thought. Katarni Barani, witch and shepherd of her flock, has always been different. There's a darkness in her blood and a destiny beyond the border of her small village. Corruption is spreading, and the whispers of cultists stir through the woods once again. Betrothed to the heir of the Wolfblood clan, she risks not only her life but her heart. United, they must stand against the cultists, or watch the kingdom of Hungary fall. Cursed by death and controlled by fate, Katarni is forced to meet her demons or die by them. Such an incredible story, and I read it quite a while ago. It took a while for us to get this interview finally scheduled, but when we did, it was incredible. I absolutely loved talking to Chloe. So without more further ado, let's just dive right in with Chloe. Hello, Chloe, and welcome to Read It with Whiskey. How are you doing? I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me. It's really good to be here.
Yay! We are going to be talking all about your book, The Cursed and the Broken. It is absolutely gorgeous. This is also one of the books that I really like the feel of. I don't know if anybody else has mentioned that to you, but I love the feel of this book.
Yeah, they have. All of my books printed from Ingram Spark, everybody always says, oh, it's so fast. And it's weirdly noticeable when you pick up an Amazon copy versus that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. But I mean, we'll definitely dive into the book. But first, before we do that, can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and maybe just a little bit about your history in writing?
I've got my new book coming up, which will make it 5 books in total. So yeah.
So let's dive into the book. What is this book all about? Tell us about The Cursed and the Broken. Yeah, definitely the morally gray characters come out. And I know I've seen that on your website that there's a lot of that. And I'm assuming maybe in your young adult series that you wrote as well might have a little bit of that too. So when it comes to this book series, this isn't your first series. Usually the first series is like the baby that you've been holding on to for so long that you wanted to get out. But this was your second series. So what was the big inspiration or motivation behind writing this book? Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I was actually going to ask about that, the Hungarian folklore and myths. And I was wondering if that was a personal history. So that's so cool that you were able to tie it in. So did you, growing up, did you do a lot of reading and listening of this folklore? And that's it kind of built some stories inside your psyche or subconscious, maybe? Mm-hmm.
But little moments like that, some of that is what I would do with my granddad, some memories sort of incorporated in there too, which is really sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely sweet. Oh, sweet moments to memorialize him in your books, which is so, so special. So in this world that you've built, we have regular humans, we have witches, we have a lot of dark magic and some dark graphic magic scenes even, which I was really loving towards the end of the book. So what went into building this world and the magic system within this world?
Oh, I'm so glad you liked it. So there's the challenges of writing back in the day where they didn't have all the things that we take for granted today. But yeah, it was really just incorporating some of that whimsical feeling that you might get with witches' magic in general. And then our main character's magic is a little bit different and a little bit darker. So finding all those sort of folklore, those mythical creatures, and putting a twisted spin on them.
Yeah, so much fun. And I loved our main character, Katarni. So she is definitely a fun character, especially learning about who she is throughout the book and learning about what she is capable of, regardless of what she knows, what you learn later. It's very entertaining. We're not going to get into spoilers, but in the very beginning, we find out that she is betrothed. And so I loved that you had that aspect of being betrothed and not being able to pick your own marriage partner type situation going on. So is that just a trope that you've always wanted to write into a book, or what kind of made that process come through?
I really enjoy reading about arranged marriage in books, especially when it's tied with enemies to lovers. I just think that's such a nice combo where you can get some tension on page and, the main love interests don't necessarily get along straight away, which is always entertaining. But yeah, in this book, the coven that she belongs to, they don't really conform to perhaps what we would recognize as normal marriage ideas. So the coven is women only, and then there's this clan called Kaltashok. So they're sort of like shamans. They live separately as well. So they might, procreate and they might spend time with each other for a little bit, but then they sort of go their separate ways. And the children, like the girls will stay with the coven, and then the boys will go to the other clan. So Katani sort of wants to break the mold there and reshape the way that society can live, where people can do what they want. So it's sort of an interesting start where, she doesn't want this marriage at all, but because of some of the underlying thoughts, she's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it for my family and make sure that they're safe and protected. And then you may or may not see them come to agree with each other on some of these points.
Exactly. And I loved when she found out she was betrothed and there was an arranged marriage happening, because when her mom was reading the letter, she thought it was her little sister who was being arranged into this marriage. And when she found out it was her, she was like, what? And yeah, she's the older sister. So you would think so, but it hadn't even crossed her mind as a possibility, because she always knew she was going to be just a solo witch in this village. And so I loved that scene. I think it was one of my favorites, and it's right there towards the beginning. So I didn't do any spoilers or anything for anybody. All right. So talking about some of these other characters, I love to hear who the character is that maybe influenced you as a writer the most. So who was your favorite character, or who was your favorite character to write into the book?
It's definitely cliche, but I did have a lot of fun writing Katani. I found her probably to be the most realistic in terms of the way that she thinks about things. Sometimes she doesn't rationalize so well. She's quite hot-tempered, so a lot of what she does is just like, right, I've got this in my head and I'm going for it. But underneath it all, everything that she does is to protect and keep her loved ones safe, which I resonate with because family, to me, is the most important thing. But also all of her traumas, I won't give anything away, but the things that she faced when she was growing up, you can sort of see how that reflects and how she grows on that as the story progresses. So I had a lot of fun writing her. I also really loved writing one of the side characters, Andrish. He's just like a marshmallow. He's just all soft-scented and has all the banter. So yeah, he was lots of fun.
Oh, there were a few characters I really loved. I really loved Dante, his sarcastic, playful attitude, how he would pick on some characters. I really enjoyed him. I really liked Erica, kind of that strong female character. I kind of gravitated towards the scenes where I could see her. That was always fun. And then there's this mysterious character who you don't learn too much about towards the beginning of the book. So would you tell everybody a little bit about the Dark Queen and why she's significant to the story?
So she is the villain of this story. We don't learn too much about her in book one, but we sort of understand what made her the way that she is in the second book. She essentially was one of the first witches that ever, came to this earth in the Kingdom of Hungary. And her magic was powerful, and the elders in her coven became afraid of her, became afraid of what she could do with that, and didn't want to let her have that seat of power. So in retaliation, she started looking to dark magic and began practicing cultism. We were following from that, and then it sort of spiraled from there. So before she died, she was essentially burnt at the stake for her crimes and for everything that she did. So this book, set in the future from that, is about her cultists that have survived trying to bring her back. And that's sort of the breaking point of this story, really, is it all comes back to Katani in a way that I'm not going to say, but yeah, it's all about this Dark Queen and the things that she can and will do.
Yes, and I loved how you were able to tie in that history very flawlessly right at the beginning, because Katani and Esther's mom is telling them, and they're kind of like reciting their history of the Dark Queen. And it was just easily like folded into a conversation, and you learned so much. I just liked the underlying plot there, and I'm excited to see what happens moving into book 2. And so let's talk a little bit about that. So book 2 is releasing, as we record this, it's releasing in about 2 weeks on February 16th. So by the time this episode is out, the book will be live. It'll be live out there. People will be able to purchase. So go and buy both these books right now. Without spoilers, can you tell us anything about how the story's expanded into book 2? Or is that even possible? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I can. Absolutely. So we definitely expand more on the two love interests, their stories together. There's something that happens in book 1, which sets a really big point for our male love interest to sort of step in and prove his loyalty and, how steadfast he is to the main character. So that develops a lot more on that. And then how it's tricky trying to talk about it without spoiling anything, but it does progress with the main storyline with the villain and how they're sort of going to face off against her. So there is a big battle at the end, and there's lots of quests. There's a bit of deviation between our main characters as they all try and do certain things to, stand against her. But the interesting thing about book 2 is it is dual point of view. So Dante's got his own chapters, which is really exciting. And yeah, lots of magic. It gets even darker than book one, even spicier. So don't go into it lightly.
And so is this a duology, or is there going to be more books in this series?
Yeah, so it is a duology. It's the end of the series, but I'm thinking of potentially doing some spin-offs with a couple characters. The way that I left book two is a clear ending of the main character's story, but it has left breadcrumbs for more opportunities.
Ooh, I love it. I love the breadcrumbs, leaving little hints and little things left untied so you can kind of just jump into another story. Oh, that's always so much fun as a reader. As a writer, it can be very, very challenging, but as a reader, I absolutely love it. So as readers, who do you think is the perfect person to pick up this series then? Obviously, there's some spice, there's some fantasy, dark magic, but who should really go and get these books right now?
I think if you're a fan of fantasy romance, then this book would definitely tick some boxes for you. It's got a lot of really fun tropes in it. If you're a fan of enemies to lovers, arranged marriage, one bed, all those sort of things, then yes, this book has a lot of that. Book two is a lot spicier, so if you're not really into that, I wouldn't suggest. But if you are, then I think you're going to be happy with me. So yeah, definitely more for that sort of new adult audience. So yeah, don't let your little ones read it.
Yeah, don't let them read it. And yeah, if you're into spice, then we can all thank Chloe. So thank you, Chloe. I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to go into book two, see how much more spicy it can get. All right. And then as writers, we are always readers first. We start out reading books and then fall in love and decide, okay, let's write a book. So as a reader, a few questions here. What is your favorite genre to read? What was the most recent book you gave a 5-star to? And then how many books did you read last year?
I used to read a lot of epic fantasy, and these days I think the romance is something that I'm really looking for in books now. So definitely fantasy romance. I have been touching on dark romance, which is very new for me, and reading a lot of Waichu's books. So that's really fun. In terms of how many books last year, I think it was about 52 books. I honestly haven't been reading much lately, not many physical books at least, but I am listening to the graphic audio, the dramatized audiobooks of Akata, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and really loving them. So definitely 5 stars for those.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about those new versions of the audiobooks because they're more than just audiobooks. And so I've been thinking about diving into them because I read that series just plain audiobook format like a year ago maybe. I'd never read the paperback because they were too daunting to me. I was like, if I can see how big these books are, I'm not going to read them. So I listened to them and it worked out great. But yeah, I've heard those new versions. The graphic audio is definitely something to check out. Okay, so we know the book that was just released recently was the second and final. So what are some new projects that you can maybe tell us about coming up in the future?
I'm actually co-writing a new series with one of my author friends. So that's an urban fantasy Waichu. And we are having so much fun writing this series. I would say it's along the lines of Zodiac Academy. So we have some very silly characters, a lot of banter. So it's like a academy setting, but then it's sort of like Hunger Games where there's some pretty heavy trials they have to face. So yeah, that's going to be a 6-book series, and hopefully we'll have the first book releasing around April, May. Yeah.
Oh, exciting. I didn't realize it would be coming out so soon. Ooh, so much fun. And that's funny. The Zodiac Academy, I believe those are also co-written. I feel like there's a lot of authors out there doing co-written like massive fantasy books. And I think it's a little bit easier to write larger books when you have another person, like that second set of eyes or maybe 2 points of view. So how has that process been co-authoring a book?
Yeah, I have seen a lot of authors doing that lately. With the Zodiac Academy, they're actually sisters. So I think that that would be so cool and so fun to do that. But so far, the process it's just been so enjoyable. It's been really easy. We write similar in the style that we're doing for this series, so that makes it nice and seamless and everything flow. It's just been a lot of fun. I think this is probably been one of the most enjoyable projects I've ever done, just because you're sharing in that with someone else. And it does make things feel really fast because the word count is racking up quickly. The way that we do it is it's a multiple point of view series, and we have our set characters, and then that just makes it easy so that we can sort of keep going and have no complaints so far.
Yeah. I've thought about it, but I don't know. I'm so random with when I want to write and when I don't want to write. I don't think I could be a very dependable co-author. So I'm like, maybe I won't do that quite yet. We'll see one day. All right. Well, this is Read It with Whiskey, and it wouldn't be Read It with Whiskey without talking a little bit about whiskey. So Chloe, what is your favorite whiskey to drink?
I'm not really a whiskey drinker, although I do like Japanese whiskey. When we went to Japan, we had quite a lot over there, and it's not something I would pick up much, but I did really enjoy it. But in general, I'm very basic. I drink ginger beer or wine, and then, a cocktail on the occasion when you might feel like getting a little bit rowdy.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, I love it. Yeah, give me a ginger beer anytime. I love it. All right. Well, where can people find you and your books and follow along with upcoming projects?
So you can get my whole catalogue on my website at chloehodge.com. These all come fine and personalised. Obviously, I'm from Australia, so the shipping isn't great for everyone overseas. But you can also get them on Amazon, just about any online book retailer, and the ebook on Amazon. Audiobook is actually coming for The Cursed and the Broken, I think, tomorrow. So that will be available soon too.
Awesome. Oh, well, that sounds great. I'll definitely be diving into book 2 as soon as I can get my hands on it. And I'm really excited about the new projects that you talked about with co-authoring. I'm following along with your journey, and I hope everybody listening is going out to grab this book right now. All of the links are in the description with this episode, so go check them out. And thank you so much, Chloe, for being on this show. I've had a great time with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so wonderful to chat.
Chloe was such a blast to talk with, and of course her story is so unique, and I really enjoyed diving into that whole realm. Such a fun concept. All of the links will be in the episode description, so definitely go ahead and check her out and stay tuned. And next week on Read It with Whiskey, we have someone who has my favorite name in the world. Her name is Laura, but a different Laura. Her name is Laura Dietering, and she is the author of The Witch in the Envelope. This is book 1 in her series, and I absolutely adored it. Definitely my kind of story being a millennial. If you are a millennial and you love the 90s, you're going to love all of the little references within this story. So definitely tuned in next week for the interview with Laura. You've been listening to an episode of Read It with Whiskey. I'm your host, Laura Juntunen, and I want to personally say thank you so much for listening. Your support of the podcast means so much to me, and I would love to get to know you. Hop on over to Instagram and follow us at Read It with Whiskey. Please chime in on this episode's post, share it on your social media and with your friends, and come back next time to hear more from self-published authors. I'll talk to you soon.